Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alana, and on this channel we pretty much talk about everything books and literature. I love to read and I love talking about books, so here we are. So in today's video, I'm really going to be talking about my reading goals for 2022. This list is not set in stone. You can see I've got the books behind me stacked up, but this list is not set in stone. However, I do function best in general off of lists. I'm not a mood reader. I'm not spontaneous. I'm one of those people who can create a list of a reading list and stick with it, and actually not get too distracted off of that list. So I may change my mind with some of these books as I begin reading, or maybe I read one of these books and it kind of makes me want to read or dive into something else. So I've had that happen, but for the most part, this is where my mind is for 2022, and this is quite a bit of books. I think it's manageable for me for 2022. I don't have a set number of books that I want to read. I don't set a number. I just read and get through what I'm able to get through, and then go from there. Usually when I read, I do have a main read that I read from every day, and then I have other books that I'm kind of rotating out. I typically have about 3 books going on at a time. I'm also going to try my best to look at the actual camera lens, which is here, so it makes it look like I'm making eye contact with you and not talking to myself. I am talking to myself. I'm sitting in a room talking to myself. But it's just weird. It's just weird. This is my first rodeo. All right, so we are going to talk about today my priority reads for 2022. There are a few books on this list that I don't physically have yet. I've purchased them. They're in the mail. Speaking of which, I have not checked the mail yet today. Maybe some of them have popped up, but I'll go through those books at the end of my list here of the physical books that I already have, and I will probably just put a picture up, figure out how to do that, put a picture up in this little spot here of the other text that I will be adding to this. Let's start with the top, because I've already started this by the time I'm recording this, it's the last week of 2021. So I was able to start this on my time off of work. Outlander by Daniel Gabaldon. This is a reread for me. I'm in the mood to reread, and that will be a theme for my reading goals for 2022. I love Outlander. However, I've only read the first 3 books. There's now 10 of them, and I do plan to read all of them as physical copies. I don't know. That's something that I want to do. It might take me a decade to do that, but here we are. So as you can see, by the time of this video, I'm about 80 pages in, and I forgot how much of a joy this novel was. It's witty, and Claire is such an interesting character. I really think she's fascinating. I'm not even going to go through, because I have almost 20 books to go through. I'm not even going to give a synopsis on all of these books. I may kind of throw in some, this is why I want to read this. But Outlander by Daniel Gabaldon, a reread. I already know this is going to be a 5-star read for me, so spoiler alert. But yeah, I was just in the mood for pure escapism, which this is for me. My last read of 2021 was Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Fantastic novel, but it's a different type of reading, and I just really wanted to dive into something that just is a little faster for me to read. Certain types of books make you slow down as a reader, and I just really wanted to just be whisked away in the Highlands of Scotland. So there we are. That'll be my first finished book probably of 2020. What year is it? 2022. Good grief. That'll be the first book of 2022. Here we are, 2022. Okay. The Italian by Anne Radcliffe. This was inspired by, I had this book on my shelf for about 2 years, but I decided to add this to my 2022 reading goals is because I think the second to last book that I finished in 2021 was Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, and Anne Radcliffe is definitely mentioned in that novel. It's really Jane Austen's satire on the Gothic novel, and so I was like, I gotta read The Italian, so it kind of pushed me to pick up this chunker. This is a thick novel, a thick classic, and the font is tiny. So, but I am looking forward to this because I know that Gothic novels that were written in this time period in the 1700s were a bit ridiculous. So I'm looking forward to that. We've got some chunkers coming up. One of my top reads, one of my priorities is A Tale of Monte Cristo by Dumas. I always want to say Crisco. Crisco as in, shortening that you put in baked goods that's not good for you but makes things taste amazing. Cristo, not Crisco. Look at this chunker. Man, how big is this book? My edition is almost 1,500 pages. Granted, the font on this particular edition is not super tiny, so that's one reason why I think that's actually quite manageable, the text size of this book. So actually, I'm really looking forward to this. I've heard that it is really entertaining, so I always like to read a couple of really thick door stopper novels in a year, so classic novels rather, and this is one of them. The second one, which I was not planning to add to my list in 2022, is War and Peace by Tolstoy. I have only read one other Tolstoy novel, which was Anna Karenina, and I don't know, I got the urge to read it all of a sudden at the end of, I would say maybe around November, early December. I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to tackle this novel in 2022. So this is going to be my other big chunky classic of the year, even though I have one more back there. Actually, I have two more back there. I can't say no to the chunky classics. There's something about a big, thick book that you just want to focus. Yeah, I mean, this thing weighs a ton. I have tiny hands. This book is cumbersome to hold, and I love every bit of its chunky goodness. I mean, and the font on this thing. If I just crease the spine, I don't care. War and Peace. There you go. Enough rambling. One of my top reads or goals for 2022 is to start In Search of Lost Time. So I'm going to be reading the first volume of Proust's 7-volume In Search of Lost Time, Swann's Way. And I'm actually really looking forward to this. This is not a thick novel. I mean, for me, it's not thick. I don't consider a book that's just over 500 pages super long because, again, I like a really big chunky novel. And compared to the size of like War and Peace, and this is doable. But I know that it is a much slower reading experience than most novels that'll really I need some water. Please hold. Proceeding. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Even though this is not, for me, a super thick book, I know that the way that it's written, it's so detailed, and just the style of writing is going to force me to read this slowly. So I expect to take my time with this. I also have a book called Paintings in Proust by, I can't remember the author's name at this point, but it covers all 7 volumes, and it shows you the paintings that Proust is referring to with the description of each painting. So that will be my companion read for this particular book. I like to read a Virginia Woolf each year, which is something that I started last year. I take that back. I read a collection of Virginia Woolf's essays in 2020, and getting a text message. Cool. Yes, girl, get you some sneakers. That was my sibling. So I read a collection of essays in 2020 of Virginia Woolf. Loved it. That was really my first introduction to reading Woolf. Even though I read her in high school, I wasn't feeling it in high school. But so I started to read her essays in 2020. A collection is How to Read by Virginia Woolf, and I really loved that collection of essays. And so that made me less intimidated to read Woolf. There's something about Virginia Woolf that I found to be really intimidating. I don't find it to be intimidating anymore because I read Mrs. Dalloway last year. Really, did I read it last year? Well, yes, it would be last year as of this video. So I read it in 2021. And so now I'm on to my next Woolf novel, which will be To the Lighthouse. I don't know why I picked To the Lighthouse. It's just the next one that, I don't know, kind of piques my interest the most. So To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. Make sure that I squeeze that in. It's not a big it's not a thick volume at all, but Virginia Woolf does force you to slow down. She has such a unique writing style. We have The Idiot by Alif Baduman. I really hope I pronounced her name right. But this novel, in a way, represents a reading project that I am embarking on starting in 2022. I guess you could say I really kind of started it last year. I read a short story by, what is her name? Sally Rooney, called Mr. Salary. And I'm kind of going to be doing this, I guess you could say, study, this project on millennial fiction. And I'm kind of going to dive into that maybe in another video. But I'm not anticipating liking a lot of these novels by millennial authors that I currently own. I did not like Mr. Salary. I will post a review on it, even though it's a short, very short story of only 30 something pages, but I didn't like it. But again, I'm reading it for a purpose. So, and I own Sally Rooney's other novels. I'm talking about Sally Rooney, so we're talking about this book. But yeah, so this is representing, why it's in this stack, is representing my project of millennial fiction and some of the themes that I want to talk about that are within millennial fiction. And I figured out of all of the millennial fiction books that I currently own, some of them are back here. You can see Severance and My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Sally Rooney's back there, but this is the one that I'm anticipating liking the most, or probably being able to get on with. So, and of course, The Idiot is paying homage to Dostoevsky's novel The Idiot, which I haven't read. One day I will, but this is here. I'm going to try to squeeze in other millennial fiction novels as I can. I don't imagine them to be difficult to get through. I imagine they would be pretty quick reads for me. So there's that. All right, The Milkman by Anna Burns. I've been excited to get through this book since I purchased it in the summer of 2021. Again, this was a book that I was familiar with. I knew of it for quite some time, but I decided to go ahead and purchase it because when I actually looked into the premise of this novel, it really fascinated me. Just the way, the style of writing, how it likes to focus on the... I've heard that this writing is quite detailed, and I really like writing like that. One reason why I also picked this up, because I find that novels in which the author has a writing style that's very detailed and gets into the mundane of life and the mundane of things in the midst of other things going on, I find it very fascinating. I notice that's kind of like a trend these days with novels, but is it really a trend? Because this is what Proust has done. So maybe I'll kind of go on to novels that seem Proust-like. I really don't know if this will be Proust-like, but I imagine that novels that get into the mundanity of life and in the minutia of life, there may be some similarities. I'm eating my hair. Some similarities and comparisons to draw, but also this is not a dystopia, because this is referring to a period in Irish history that actually happened. Even though some people do classify this as some people describe this as being dystopian-like. And there are a few things I cannot speak. There were a few things when I was watching reviews and reading reviews on this novel that kind of reminded me of the past 2 years that we have experienced. So being in lockdowns and what have you. So I'm kind of curious to read it from that perspective as well. Next we have Grove by Esther Kinsky. And so we have an unnamed narrator. That's also a trend that I've noticed in novels these days, are unnamed narrators. It doesn't bother me. I just notice it more and more frequently. And so basically she's in Rome. I'm reading off the back of the book because I can't remember off the top of my head. And so I know that this book does kind of go into, again, the minutia, the details. She's describing the nature around her. They said Grove is an exquisite novel of grief, love, and landscapes. It's the landscapes that really are appealing to me here. So again, this long, meandering kind of writing style, I dig it. Okay, I dig it, and that's one reason why this is intriguing to me. Also, I have a bookish friend who says this is a novel that she thinks that I would like. All right, my tower of books is starting to collapse. Another book that I added, if I could pick it up, this is a book that I added, A Gentleman in Moscow, that I added kind of at the last minute. This has been on my TBR since the book was published. I've known about it for quite some time. It sat on my Amazon wish list. I have a wish list of books that I would potentially like to read. This and his book Rules of Civility. And I also just recently purchased his most current release, which the name of it is completely evading me. But I already know that this is an author whose writing I'm going to get on with. And I have friends who have recommended this book to me, even though they didn't know initially that it was already on my sometime to read list. But they were like, yeah, this guy, he talks about, he kind of philosophizes and stuff like that, which you're totally into. So I was like, let me go ahead and add it. I tracked this edition down because it is stunning. Look at it. That's good stuff right there. I do. When I purchase a book, or when I'm about to purchase a book, I have to know all the editions that are out there, and then I'll pick my favorite edition. And if it's out of print, I will hunt it down. I was able to get my hands on this. I'm excited to read this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how awkward can I be? Now we're getting into a couple of chunky classics. We have The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. I like to read a Dickens a year, and so this is the next one up. Again, speaking of out-of-print editions, I was so chuffed to get my hands on this edition a few years ago. One of my favorite Penguin English Library classic covers that are out there. This is, as you can expect with Dickens, this is a long novel. My boy Chuck got a lot to say. I mean, if I was getting paid by word, yeah, I'm gonna milk it. This book is over 700 pages long. It doesn't look that thick, but it must be the type of paper that's used that makes it look a little bit thinner. Yeah, it's over 700 pages. So this is my Dickens for the year. Then this one, if I could get it stuck to the other book. I hate these rubberized covers. They drive me insane. They just pick up dust and they're just a weird texture. Publishers, can we stop doing these rubberized? Can we stop it? It's annoying. Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I had no intention of reading this book in 2022, but I was having a chat with a bookish friend on Instagram, and she was like, yeah, you got to read that book. It is a wild ride. She was like, that book is crazy. She was like, oh, I'm due for a reread. I was like, maybe we should buddy read it together. And she's like, let's do it. So that's kind of how I imagined her voice that's what I imagined her to be saying to me. But we agreed to buddy read this. So we'll see. If we don't get to it, we don't get to it. But I do have it here, kind of floating in the periphery of my mind. We have Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel. I read Wolf Hall last year and I really enjoyed it. So next up is Bring Up the Bodies. And this book is a little bit thinner than Wolf Hall. The font's a little bit bigger, so I should have no problem getting through this. I know it took me a month to read Wolf Hall, but Bring Up the Bodies because the Tudors will always be fascinating to me. I never get tired of I just don't get tired of Tudor history and Tudor historical fiction, never boring to me. Next on my books that I plan to read in 2022, Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is the only Austen novel that I have not read at this point. I feel like Mansfield Park gets a bad rap. People find it incredibly boring. I don't know. But I've also heard people say that it's one of her most underappreciated books, or is that the right phrase? Underappreciated? I'm going to use the phrase underappreciated. My mind just went blank. Yeah, a lot of people say that this is her most underappreciated piece of work. However, there are a lot of people who just don't care for it. So, but either way, I want to read all of her novels, and so Mansfield Park is the last one that I haven't read yet. So, there you go. And then I have 3 more physical books here to show you, and then I am going to talk about the books that I own that are not Sorry, not the books that I own, but the books that I will be reading this year that I just don't have the physical copies of yet. Yeah, I'm totally blanked out. Pachinko by Minjin Lin. That's not her name. Her name is Minjin Lee. Minjin Lin. Who is Minjin Lin? This was a Christmas gift from one of my very good friends for 2020. Yes, she gave this book to me Christmas 2020. And so one of my goals this year is to read books that people have given me that I haven't read yet. And this is one of them. And I know people really enjoy this book. I love family sagas, especially family sagas that chronicle decades of people's lives. So this is on the list. And again, there are other books that I will be reading. These are just the ones that I'm kind of prioritizing or that I'm the most eager to read. But I do have some other books in the back of my mind that I would like to read this year. And there are two more that I'm considering, and they were given to me. I really want to make sure that I read what people give me. We have Transit by Rachel Cusk, which is the second installment for the Outline trilogy. I really enjoyed Outline, which I was kind of surprised. I know people either really like it, they're neutral about it, or they're like, I hate it. I really enjoyed it. And so, second installment. I'm one of those people that when it comes to trilogies, I can't read them back to back. Or trilogies, or I guess you could say collections of books, or series. They're called series. Series of books. I can't read them back to back to back. I tend to get bored quickly with the content, so I like to space them out. And again, it kind of gives me something to look forward to. So this year I'll be reading Transit. And then my favorite book of all time is due for a reread. The fourth reread. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Man, I love this book. This will be my fourth reread of the novel. I'm due for a reread. And the reason why I decided to reread it is because the last time I read Jane Eyre was at the end of 2018. And I was just getting out of a 3-year reading slump at that point. And I wasn't reviewing books on Instagram. I wasn't avidly reading. Again, I was getting out of a reading slump, so I was kind of figuring out what I was in the mood to read, because my reading changed a lot between that time that I was pre-reading slump and post-reading slump. My reading changed a lot, and how I engage with text changed a lot. I now annotate my books avidly, and I was not annotating at the end of 2018. So yeah, I want to go. I'm a different reader. Long story short, I'm a very different reader than I was pre-reading slump. And my reading slump actually lasted for 3 years. So, yeah, so I really look forward to reading this book from the perspective of who I am as a reader now. And to annotate this, I don't have an annotated edition of Jane Eyre that I've done. So, is that even good English? No, I do not have. There it is. I have not annotated a copy of Jane Eyre, and that's one thing that I really want to do. I love this book. It will always be my number one book. So the other two books that I don't currently have in my possession because I've ordered them. One is The Hobbit. I have never read The Hobbit, and I really, really want to, because I am in the mood to reread, like I said. So I'm rereading Outlander, I'm rereading Jane Eyre, and I want to reread The Fellowship of the Ring. Actually, I want to reread the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I'll probably just focus on, not probably, I will just focus on the Lord of the Rings. Duh. I will just focus on, what in the heck? What? I will just focus on The Fellowship of the Ring this year, but I've never read The Hobbit. So, spoiler alert, yeah, I'm reading The Fellowship of the Ring, and I will be reading The Hobbit. I'll read The Hobbit first, and then I'll read The Fellowship of the Ring. And I have really, really old editions, old to me, of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. They're the mass paperback editions of the novels that came out in the early 2000s when the movies were coming out. And so they've got, the covers are the stills from the movies. In my editions, my set has stills from the Two Towers when the Two Towers was being released. I was in the 6th grade, but I loved Lord of the Rings, and that was the first time I read it when I was in the 6th grade. And I think they're just due for a reread. I read The Fellowship of the Ring twice. The last time I read it was in 2015. I'm due for a reread. They're just fantastic novels. There's so many good nuggets and quotes in them. So I'm just craving it. I'm even craving rewatching Lord of the Rings, which is something that me and my sister are going to be doing. Actually, probably today. We're going to start today, the day that I'm filming, but we are going to rewatch the whole series, but we're going to rewatch the extended editions. I've seen the extended edition of The Fellowship of the Ring. I have never seen the extended editions of The Two Towers and The Return of the King. So yeah, I'm just in the mood for Lord of the Rings. It's just such good classic fantasy. Doesn't get better than that. So yeah, that is, oh, side note, I cannot wait to show you guys dust. I dusted in here today too. I cannot wait to show you guys my editions of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I got it as a set. I tracked them down. They're really hard to get in the United States. I believe they're, I think maybe easier to find in the UK, but they are these really pretty hardback editions with these gorgeous illustrations in the books. And the illustrations were done by the artist who did the illustrations for the Hobbit movies. So I'm really excited to get my hands on that. Again, like I said, I had to hunt them down. They were not easy to get in the States. I had to go the route of eBay. Actually, I tried to order them twice before, and I got refunded because the sellers contacted me back and were like, sorry, we ran out of stock, so here's your money back. And I'm like, what? And then I finally found a seller who I was able to get them from. Can't wait to show them. Whew, that was a lot of talking. I'm a rambler. I'm logging in to my computer. I have notes down here to stay on topic. So yeah. Have you read any of these books? What are you planning to read in 2022? If you've read any of the books that I've mentioned, please let me know in the comments. Did you like them? Did you not like them? Don't feel bad if you didn't like them. I'm all about varying opinions because people having the same opinions about things is completely boring. So please let me know how you felt about these books in the comments. What do you plan to read this year? And again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for tuning in and taking time out of your day to listen to me ramble about books. And if you enjoyed my content that I've posted thus far, please feel free to like the video, subscribe, and be a part of my little YouTube channel. I would really appreciate it. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram, and I do post book reviews there, the link is down below. If you do not have Instagram, but you would still like to read my book reviews from 2021 and past, I do have a blog. And the link is also below because I know that everybody uses Instagram. And so the blog is, you can just click the link and you don't have to have an account or anything. Duh. So yeah, please feel free to like and subscribe. Like I've already said, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.